I can't believe they wouldn't let us in, Dorn muttered sadly. Ewix patted the barbarian on the back of the leg to comfort him, unable to reach his back with his halfling stature. There are plenty of Afank in the sea, my friend, Ewix said, in an attempt to comfort his human friend. The Gerudo of the desert would not even let the two of them into town. Apparently, it was an ancient law passed down through the history of Hyrule that no man may ever enter Gerudo town. Of course, Dorn tried to argue, as an entire town of strong, attractive women was the sort of thing barbarians dream of. Look on the bright side, the halfling said. At least we got more information on the artifact that might be able to send us home. The barbarian's only response was to grunt depressingly. The new addition spoke up. Well, don't worry. I'm sure a Vo like you will find love eventually, said the young Gerudo. A few days ago, when they came back from the Earth Temple with Baz to give their report to the King of the Zora, Ewix explained the situation that he and Dorn were in, that they were not originally from Hyrule, and they needed to find a way back to Faerun, so they could finish an important quest given to them. The king told them of a story from ancient times, that deep in the Gerudo desert was a mirror that could open portals from one world to another. He mused that the Gerudo might know more. The journey proved arduous, and Baz accompanied them as far as he could before needing to turn back, as the desert was not a hospitable environment for a Zora to endure for long. Upon reaching the town, they were met with refusal at the gates. Undeterred, they began questioning the guards about the fabled mirror, but received very little assistance. As they stood by the gates, a passerby named Riju entered. The guards seemed to respect this enigmatic young woman. Overhearing their conversation, she offered to join the duo on their quest, as she possessed vague clues regarding the mirror's whereabouts. The journey through the desert was a brutal one. The oppressive sun and boiling hot sand made the duo wish they were anywhere but here. Riju seemed unfazed, and Ewix was amazed that she could go through all this harsh terrain in high heels. They traveled for a few days. As the party came over a ridge, they found themselves in some ruins. Before they had an opportunity to look around, Riju yelled, "Sandstorm!" They could see a giant sandstorm fastly approaching, and there was nothing that could be done to avoid it. It completely overwhelmed them. The howling winds and sand blinded and deafened the party, and as Ewix looked around to find his companions, a silhouette appeared before him. Thinking it might be one of his companions, he approached. As he got closer, the details became apparent. It was deathly skinny, and atop its shoulder a pair of cold, uncaring compound eyes. It looked at him. Ewix screamed. No one could hear him. Hello everyone, Manic Monster Masher here today with another D&D video. We shall be returning to the land of Hyrule with the Gibdo of Tears of the Kingdom. The Gibdo is one of the oldest monsters in the series, and Tears of the Kingdom's version is pretty cool. So I have a stat block for it here, but before we get started, let's first go over what the creature looks like. The Gibdo is a tall, insect-looking like creature that has a brown exoskeleton for skin, arms that are almost the length of its entire body, with claws at the end of them. Its mid-body appears to be a very slim, bone-like structure, and its upper body appears to be where most of its organs are. It has gill-like structures on its neck, and its head has a pair of mandibles, with sharp teeth. as well as black eyes with pupils that are a solid light red color. Some have brightly colored butterfly wings. As you can tell, this creature has a lot of insect-like properties that make me think that, unlike its counterpart in other Zelda games, this creature is not an undead and is in fact a humanoid insect species. Like the other species of monsters in Hyrule, Gibdo turned into a cloud of vapor when killed. Unlike the other creatures of Hyrule, however, it is implied that there is some form of sexual reproduction within the Gibdo, as Gibdo spawn from mushroom-looking hive structures, as well as having a queen found in the Lightning Temple, point to this being the most likely possibility. So let's unpack all of this. Also, as an FYI, I'm going to be using the term gloom and malice pretty interchangeably. It is my theory that most of the monsters in Hyrule are created with the two substances known as gloom and malice. These two substances have been around in the Zelda series for a very long time, but it was Breath of the Wild that finally gave it its name. When a blood moon occurs in Breath of the Wild, Zelda says, "By its glow, the aimless spirits of monsters slain in the name of the light return to flesh." The monsters appear to be given form again through the power of malice and gloom. So why does this matter? Well, for one, it makes the monsters of this world effectively immortal. Kind of like the demons from all three Warhammer settings. You can kill its physical body, but it'll come back eventually. And two, it lets us know that these creatures are literally made of malice. But I do not necessarily think that this is the case for the Gibdo, as the hive structures and the presence of a queen make me think that these creatures, while they have some form of gloom or malice inside of them, do not use it in the same way that other monsters do. While we're on the topic of the bodies of these creatures, let's talk about what it looks like and why it matters. Like I said earlier, it's pretty apparent that these creatures are some form of insect and not undead. I know there are some theories out there that say that these creatures are some form of undead, and I believe that this theory comes from the fact that they share a name with the other creature in the series named Gibdo, and this creature is clearly an undead mummy of some sort. Why do they share this name? Well, I believe I have a theory for that as well. Humans often mislabel things that they are unfamiliar with a name of something that they are familiar with in order to make sense of that thing. A personal example I can give you is that when me and my grandpa would go fishing as a child, we would often see and catch fish that had albinism. These fish were more often than not from different trout species, but me and my grandpa would often just group them together under the umbrella term of albino. I suspect that something similar has happened in the land of Hyrule. Some Gerudo saw one of these creatures while on patrol, saw it shamble around, and found out firsthand it had a craving for fresh meat, and she just assumed, this must be the Gibdo that I've heard about from old stories. While in the game, we are not really told how all the new monsters got their names. I would think that it would be a pretty safe bet that the Gibdo name for this creature came from a misidentification, and not because it was literally the same thing as from the other game. Also, a final note, the exoskeleton of the Gibdo appears to be rock hard and takes no damage until it is hit by cold, fire, or lightning. I honestly think that this is more of a video game thing, as I have no idea how that would work or how it came to be. As far as I can tell, insects are just as susceptible to cold, fire, and lightning as every other creature on the face of the planet. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's take a look at the 5e stat block I've made for use in your Dungeons & Dragons game. So here it is. Let's go over some of the more interesting parts. If you want to take further look into this card, go ahead. But we're going to really go over the actions and passive abilities this thing has, and not really the stats of the creature, just to save a little time. Let's start with the one and only trait I have on this creature called Elemental Weakness. As you may or may have not noticed, this creature has a lot of immunities, and that is meant to represent its hard exoskeleton, just like in Tears of the Kingdom. And the elemental weakness I have worded as, when the Gibdo is successfully hit with an attack that uses cold, fire, or lightning damage, it loses all of its immunities. After one round of combat, it gains back all of its immunities. So, just like in the games, if you hit it with an elemental attack of sorts, its exoskeleton becomes brittle and you are able to inflict damage upon it. You'll also notice that this thing does not have a lot of hit points. I could not find a version of the creature that was particularly tough when it had been hit with an elemental attack. Even the gloom-filled ones die almost instantaneously with any weapon after they've been hit with an elemental attack, so it only has 9 hit points. Next up is the basic claw attack here. It's a melee attack, +2 to hit, 5 feet on one target, 2d4 slashing damage. Pretty basic. The Gibdo in the game does have a claw attack. Interestingly enough, though, only the Gibdos without wings have a claw attack in the game. The ones with wings rely heavily on the next ability we have, the Acid Breath attack. This attack, like I said, in the game is only used by the flying Gibdo. So you can use that information however you would like. Take it away or put it on crawling ones, whatever. Anyway, the Acid Breath reads, Acid Breath, charged on a 5 or a 6. The Gibdo exhales acid in a 15-foot line that is 5 feet wide. Each creature in that line must make a DC 11 Dex saving throw, taking 5d8 acid damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. That might look a little familiar. That is because it is literally just the same Acid Breath attack of the Black Dragon Wormling. With all of that information, let me give you some possible quest ideas for how to use this creature in your 5th edition games. Livestock has gone missing lately, and the farmers have tracked a trail of blood back to a strange mushroom in the forest. The farmers are so superstitious that they won't go anywhere near it, so they hire a group of adventurers to cut down the strange mushroom. But as the first strike hits the strange object, Gibdos begin to fall out of it, and combat begins. This is a pretty typical one. Or a 3-Kreen town has a strange plague sweep through it, and the result is a painful transformation into a Gibdo. The party has been tasked to find a plant that they can make a vaccine with, but the plant only grows in a certain cave, and that cave is now filled with a Gibdo hive. For those unfamiliar with the 3-Kreen, they are essentially D&D's insect playable character race. Really interesting stuff. Usually they're psychic too, so there's that. Dark Sun was crazy. And lastly, a red dragon has taken residence in a volcano near a highly populated port town. The town wants it gone, but they have no way of getting an armed militia into the center of a volcano safely. So they plan to poison it with Gibdo blood to make the dragon weak to its own fire and the heat of the volcano. They hire the party to go into the volcano and poison the beast before it can cause havoc on the city. Anyway, those were just some ideas for you. That's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think, and if you like what you saw, go ahead and stay tuned for the next video. I have here in the script that I was going to figure out what I was going to do for the next video, but I actually have no idea. I might get inspired by something and come up with something totally crazy.